Hey guys, this is for either Wednesday the 27th or Thursday the 28th. We're going to continue working with graphing linear equations. So a linear function, say f of one value, say x, is any function that can be written in the form f of x is equal to ax plus b, where a and b are real numbers and a does not equal 0. This form is also called a first degree function. That means there's no exponent greater than 1. So here's a few formulas that you need to memorize. The first one is slope-intercept formula. I'll be talking about this one, and we're talking about the form y equals mx plus b. M is always going to represent your slope. And B is always going to represent your y-intercept. Now, last week we talked about x and y intercepts. So your y-intercept is always going to be part of your equation when you're talking about slope-intercept form. And that's where the line crosses the y-axis. Another formula we're going to be using today is called the point slope formula. That's when they give you the slope and they give you 1 point and they ask you what the equation of the line is. Another formula we'll be using is the slope formula, when all they give us is 2 coordinates or 2 ordered pairs and ask us to find the slope from it. And then, like I said the other day, we used the y-intercept. And remember, when you find the y-intercept, it's always the y value when the x equals 0. All right, so we're going to put all that together. And so all we're talking about right now is graphing straight lines. So here's our coordinate plane. When you graph lines, remember there's 4 types of lines. Either the line goes up and to the right. So this would be our y-intercept. It's where our line crosses the y-axis. And the steepness of the line is what our slope is. So either your line will go up and to the right, or you can have a line that goes down and to the right. So this one would have a negative slope. It's going down and to the right. Right here would be our our y-intercept. And then our other 2 lines are vertical and horizontal lines. We either have a horizontal line, and in our equation, there's only a y, or we have an x. We have a vertical line that's graphed, and in the equation, there's only an x. So we talked a little bit last week about Bucks-Hoy. So if you have a horizontal line, if they ask you what the slope is, the O means the slope is actually 0. That's what that O means. And when you have a vertical line, think of the acronym VUX, and that U reminds you that the slope is called undefined. So we're going to be using all of that stuff today. So like I said, the slope tells you how steep the line is, right? All right, so let's say they give us just 2 coordinates. We don't have a graph, and we have to figure out what the slope is. So that's the directions. Find the slope of the line. So our slope formula is the second y, subtract the first y, divided by the second x, subtract the first x. Okay, so you should always, I would write these formulas on a notebook, like a index card, and I'd keep them handy. So when I needed one of those formulas, I could look at my index card. All right, so let's call this our first x and this our first y, and we'll call the second one our second x and our second y. It doesn't really matter that this is x1 and y1. We could switch them, and this could be x2 and y2, and this could be x1 and y1. Doesn't matter, but as long as you are consistent. If this is x1, this has to be y1. If started here, if this was x1, this would have to be y1. You have to be consistent. All right, but anyway, we'll just use them the way I labeled them. So we're going to just plug our numbers right into this formula. So y2, so 6, and then always put your minus sign, always, 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 and then minus the first y is 4. We're going to put that over our x2. So in this case, x2 is 3 minus x1, which is 1. And then when we do our math, 6 minus 4 is 2. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is positive 1. So the slope on this first set of coordinates is positive 1. Now let's do the second one here. So let's go ahead and label. This is going to be x1 and y1. And this is x2 and y2. All right, so let's plug it in our formula. We're going to start with y2. That's our first value. So our y2 is 1 minus y1 is 0 over x2 is negative 4 minus, we always put that minus sign. And the reason I emphasize that is because a lot of times when the other y1 is the negative number, a lot of times people will drop that negative sign. You cannot do that. Make sure you always write minus, and this one is a negative 5. So then remember last week we talked about minus and negative. You cannot leave it like that. You must do bam, bam. So I'm going to rewrite this. 1 minus 0 over negative 4 plus 5. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. All right, so then what is 1 minus 0? 1 minus 0 is 1. Negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. And 1 divided by 1 is positive 1 again. Now that's just a coincidence that both of these are positive 1s. We could have anything. We could have a 3, we could have a 5, we could have negative 6, but it just so happens that both of those are positive 1. All right, now let's try these two. These are kind of like special types of situations, and I'll show you why. So let me write the formula. I don't know how I sometimes delete everything. I don't mean to, but it happens. All right, so here's our x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so let's start with our y2, which is 0 minus, and our first y is 7. And then x2 is 4 minus, and our first x is 4. All right, so let's simplify. 0 minus 7 is negative 7, and 4 minus 4 is 0. Now, if I want everyone to pick up your calculator, and I want you to type this in your calculator. Negative 7 divided by 0. When you do that on your calculator will tell you you've made an error. It will give you some sort of message that you cannot divide by 0. So when you end up trying to divide by 0, your calculator will probably say undefined or error. And that means that since you cannot divide by 0, the slope of this line is undefined. Okay, and it turns out the reason it's undefined is because if we graph these 2 points, like if I went right 4 and up 7, and then I went right 4 and stayed there, and I drew a line, I would go, oh, okay, well that's the reason it's undefined, because this is a vertical line. And when we think of the acronym VUX, remember I told you that U represents the word undefined. So all vertical lines are undefined, and that's why when we try to divide by 0, we end up getting an answer that's undefined, because that's what the slope is. All righty, let me erase all the stuff. Whoops, wrong button. All right, now we're going to do the last one. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, what is our second y? Our second y is negative 8 minus our first y is negative 8. Don't drop that minus sign. Over x2 is negative 9 minus x1 is negative 11. So we're going to rewrite this with the bam bams, bam, 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 bam. So we have negative 8 plus 8. Over negative 9 plus 11. So negative 8 plus 8 is 0 over 2. Now, I want everyone to use your calculator. Divide 0 by 2. and look at your calculator, it does not tell you you've made an error. The answer is 0. So you can divide 0 by a number and get a real answer, but you cannot divide by 0. You're not allowed to. So the slope of this one, and I think I told you that M represents the word slope. So our slope on this one is 0. And if I ended up graphing those 2 points, if I went left 11 down 8, and then I went left 9 down 8, I would say, oh, okay, well, this is, oh my goodness, I wish I could draw straight lines. This is a horizontal line. So if you thought of the word hoy, as in Bucks Hoy, remember I told you that the O represents actually a 0. The slope of any horizontal line is 0. So when you use this formula right here, and your final answer is 0, that means that basically you have a horizontal line, and the slope of that horizontal line is 0. So that's how you guys are going to use the slope formula when you are given 2 points without a graph and you can't see what it looks like. Then you're going to use that slope formula. All right, now the next formula, well, give me just 1 second. I'm so sorry. I apologize. We've had a family emergency this weekend, I'm afraid. And so anyway, all right. So now when we talked about the slope intercept formula, I told you slope intercept formula was y equals mx plus b. So we always are going to have 2 variables in the slope intercept formula, y and x. The m always represents the slope of the line, and the letter B always represents the y-intercept. So if you're given this information, let's say you're given the information that M is equal to 3 and B is equal to 4/5, and they want you to, and the directions say, write the equation of the line. Well, this is everything you need to write the equation of the line, because you're going to write y equals mx, so we're going to multiply 3 times x, plus our y-intercept, which is 4/5. And this is the slope-intercept form of the line, if that is the information that we're given. Now, even though this is written differently than this one, it tells us the same information. It tells us the slope is 8. And remember what the y-intercept is? It's the y value when x is equal to 0. So even though this doesn't say B is 0, 1, or it doesn't say in words the y-intercept is 0, 1, this information is the same amount of information we're given if it's written in this form. They tell us the slope, which is our m in the equation. And when x equals 1, this 1 is our y-intercept, which is the letter B. So without having to do any math at all, we know the equation of this line in slope-intercept form. It's y equals our slope, which is 8 times x, plus our y-intercept, and in this situation, it's positive 1. And that is the answer. Now, if this x value is any number besides 0, we would have to use math to figure out what the slope is. But this gives us the y-intercept because they told us that x equals 0. So we can do this problem right here with no math whatsoever. Now let's practice doing one where we have to use a little bit of math, like this one. Now this time they still give us the slope, and they give us an x value and a y value, but this time the -10 is not the y-intercept because x does not equal 0. So you have to use one of your formulas. So one of your formulas, hopefully you'll write on an index card that you'll need, is called the point slope formula. And that's what the words that you see here. They give us a point and they give us a slope. So the formula is y minus y1 is equal to the slope times x minus x1. That's a formula. Formulas never change, always be the same. Well, since this is our point right here, this is going to be x1 and x2. And of course, this is our m. This is our slope. So we're going to plug in what they give us. So we have y minus y1. Well, this time y1 is, oh, I almost put -1, but it's -10. Whoops, I didn't mean to write. This is not excuse me. Sorry, hold on. This is x1 and y1. I don't know why I wrote y2. Please don't let me confuse you. This is x1 and y1. We don't have 2 points. We only have 1 point. So x1 and y1. So y minus y1, well, what is y1? y1 is -10 is equal to our slope. Our slope is 5 times x minus our x1 is -1. Ooh. All right, so we're going to rewrite it, get rid of these minus negatives. We don't like these. So we're going to write y plus 10, because we do bam, bam, equals 5 times x. We're going to do bam, bam again, plus 1. So we just simplified those minus and negatives. And now we're going to use the distributive property. Y plus 10 is equal to, use the distributive property, 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times 1 is plus 5. And now we want slope-intercept formula, which is always the y equals formula. We want y by itself. So the only thing over here is plus 10, so we're going to subtract 10. Now we can't subtract 10 from 5x because those are unlike terms. You're not allowed to subtract a whole number that doesn't have a variable away from a number with a variable. So the only thing I can subtract 10 from is the plus 5. So that's gone. I'm left with y is equal to, bring down my 5x, and then 5 minus 10 is -5. So that is the answer. So if I have a point here and there's a slope of 5, which talks about the steepness of the line, then this will be my linear equation. That will be my linear equation. All right, let's follow these directions. It says I have this standard form. This is kind of in standard form, right? I have x and y on the same side. The first thing it tells me to do is to express this equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we have to fill in for our m and our b. So that means we want to solve for y. We want y by itself on one side of the equal sign. Well, I notice I have an x over here. I want y by itself, so I have to get rid of this positive x. The only way to get rid of a positive x is to subtract x from both sides. So let's do that first. That's gone. We're going to bring down 4y plus 9 is equal to, well, 0 minus x is minus x, -x, right? 0 goes away. Now we want this, we still want y by itself, so we're also going to get rid of plus 9. The only way to get rid of plus 9 is minus 9. So that's gone. So I have 4y is equal to, these are unlike terms. I cannot combine them, so I just have to rewrite -x minus 9. These are unlike terms. I can't combine the -1 that I don't see, but it's right here, -1x. I can't add the 1 and the 9 together. And then the last thing I have to do is divide every single term by 4. Okay, you don't just divide one term, you divide the whole, every single term by 4. So those are gone. So y is equal to, no, I can leave this in fraction form. So this is the same thing as saying -1/4 times x. Okay, so that's what this is equal to, -1/4 times x, and then minus 9/4. And that is my equation. That is my slope-intercept form. Okay. We're going to practice more. Oh, and now I have further directions. I didn't even see that. All right, so we've only done step 1. We have written this equation in slope-intercept form. Now the directions say What does y equal when x is equal to -9? Well, I'm just going to substitute -1/4 times -9 minus 9/4. So I'm just substituting like it told me to. So y equals, so I'm just going to multiply this straight across. So -1 times -9, negative times a negative is a positive. So 9 times 1 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4, minus 9/4. So what is 9/4 minus 9/4? Y equals 0. So when x is -9, y is 0. That's the answer to step 2. Determine a value for y when x equals -9. All right, let me do step 3. They give us another value for x. So let me get rid of all this. All right, this time I'm going to use, and I could use my original formula to plug these in. It doesn't matter. I just decided to use that one, but these are equivalent. They are equivalent. So now we're going to use -5. So we're going to do y is equal to -1/4 times -5/1 minus 9/4. So this is a multiplication problem. I'm going to multiply straight across. So -1 times -5 is positive 5, and 4 times 1 is 4, minus 9/4. Well, since these already have common denominators, I just get to combine my numerators. 5 minus 9. 5 minus 9 is -4 over 4, and -4 divided by 4 is -1. So when x equals -5, y equals -1. That's the answer. All right, now we are going to graph this line from this equation, okay? So this is already written in slope-intercept form. So how do I know that? It's because it's written y equals. Slope-intercept form is always y equals. The slope times x, so that's our m, and then -1 is our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is 0, -1. That is the y-intercept. This is our slope, and our y-intercept is 0, -1. How do I know it's 0, -1? Because this is the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is the y value when x equals 0. So this tells me to do two things. We're going to plot this. We're going to graph this from just this equation. So the first thing it tells me to do is, first of all, identify the slope and y-intercept, which I've already done. Secondly, plot the y-intercept. So I'm going to start with the y-intercept, which means I'm going to put a dot at 0, -1. So I'm not going to go right or left. I'm going to go down 1. Okay, and then remember the other day when I said one way you can always plot another point is by making a t-chart and then plug in a value for x. Now, normally, I would tell you to use 1 for x, but this time I'm going to use 5. And the reason I'm going to use 5 is because I want to cancel out that denominator right there. And I know if I multiply 3/5 times 5 over 1, I know those denominators cancel each other out. You see that? So that's why I'm using 5 for x. So when I multiply 3/5 times 5 over 1, I get 3 over 1. 3 over 1 minus 1. 3 over 1 is 3, and 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay? So this is the other point I'm going to graph. I'm going to start the origin. I'm going to go right 5. I'm going to go up 2. And that is my line. Now, when you do HOX, it's going to tell you to always do that. It's going to tell you to plot the y-intercept, which is always the number not being multiplied by x. It's the number that isn't multiplied by x. You plot it 0 and then whatever that number is, and then to get the next number, you can make a t-chart, or I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but Slope is always in the form of rise over run. So slope is always in the form of rise over run. So if you're in a chair and I told you to run across the room, first you would rise up out of your chair and then you would take off running, right? So in this situation, our slope is 3 over 5. So we would rise 3 and run 5. So from our y-intercept, I can go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and from there, I'm going to run right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the dot that I wrote, okay? So you always get started by graphing a line by starting at the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and then my rise is 3. I would go up 1, 2, 3. Don't make a dot yet because I still have to run right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's where that dot came from. And if I wanted to, I could keep going. I could rise 3, 1, 2, 3, and run 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would be my next dot on my line. And if it were straight, you would see that it could keep going on and on forever. All right, so number 6, find the equation of the line in standard form. So standard form is that AX plus BY equals C or something like that. The A and the, I'm sorry, the X and the Y are on the same side of the equal sign. I'm not sure why it says standard form, but I always like to write it in y-intercept form, slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. All right, so anyway, let's see what happens. So the first thing I have to do is figure out the slope of the line, right? So that's when we use the y2 minus y1. Remember, this is how the slope formula, when I'm given 2 points, I have to use this formula. So let's label these. So this is going to be x1 and y1, and this will be x2 and y2. So we're going to take our second y, which is 0, and from it subtract our first y, so 11. And then we're going to take our second x, and from it, we're going to subtract our first y. So 0 minus 11 is negative 11. 5 minus 5 is 0. So what do you notice? What happens? If you divide in your calculator, negative 11 divided by 0, it tells me I've made an error. So what does that mean? It means the answer is undefined. The slope is undefined, I should say. The slope is undefined. And what does that mean? If I have a slope that's undefined, that means I have a vertical, there's my U. I have a vertical line. And so it wants me to write an equation though. So what in the world am I going to do? Well, this part of bugs tells me there's only an X in the equation, only X in the equation. So what is the equation of my line? Well, it has to be X equals a number. Well, look at our 2 points, our 2 coordinates. What do you notice about both of them? Both of them has a 5 in the X value. So my whole equation, the whole equation I have is X equals 5, and that's it. I have nothing else. And remember, I told you when you have vertical or horizontal lines, you only have one equation, or excuse me, one variable in the equation. So that is the whole equation of my line if I have a line going through those 2 points. That's the answer. All right, find the slope of the line determined by the following equation. So if I'm given something like this and I'm looking for the slope of the line, I want to put my equation in slope-intercept form, and then that will tell me that whatever number is multiplied by X, that is the slope. So I want Y by itself. I want everything else moved to the other side. So I'm going to start with this whole term. I don't want to pull those apart. I don't want to divide by 8 and pull those apart. I want to move the whole term. Well, the only way to get rid of a whole positive term is to subtract the whole term from both sides of the equal sign. So 8x minus 8x is 0. So I bring down my negative 7y, and then I cannot combine these two unlike terms, which means I'm just going to write them out horizontally. And I just always like to write my x first because that's the way the equation is written. So I'm going to write negative 8x, and then this is a positive 15. Everybody see what I did? Well, I'm not finished because look, y is not by itself yet. So I have to get rid of that negative times negative 7. So the only way to get rid of a times negative 7 is to divide every single term by negative 7. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1, and 1 times y is y, equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and we're going to leave this as a fraction, 8/7 times x. So negative 8 over negative 7 is equal to 8 over 7 times x. And then 15 divided by negative 7, a positive divided by a negative is positive. It is not. It's negative. Positive divided by a negative is negative, and we're going to leave this in fraction form because it's not a whole number. That's the equation of the line, but now I answer the question. The question is, what is the slope? Well, the slope is the number multiplied by x, so my slope is 8/7. My slope is 8/7. All right, so that was about equations. Now, this time we're going to learn about parallel and perpendicular lines. So let's look at this first equation. Excuse me. So the one thing I'm going to tell you, well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. So, okay, the truth about parallel lines. So what are parallel lines, right? It's two lines that move, that go in the same direction and they never intersect, correct? So if I had a coordinate plane and I have a line right here and I say to you, show me any other line that's parallel. Well, you can draw it anywhere. You're just going to make sure the slopes are the same. So for parallel lines, and you need to write this in your notes, parallel lines means the slopes are the same. Slopes are the same, or I should say equal. Slopes are equal. All right, so if I had a line that sloped up and to the right, and I said, give me another parallel line, but you gave me a line like that, well, that's obviously, those are not parallel. One's a positive line, one's a negative, it goes down and to the right, and they definitely intersect, which is the opposite of parallel lines, right? That's why parallel lines must have equal slopes. So as long as you realize that two parallel lines have equal slopes, then this part's going to be easy for you. All right, so here we go. It says step 1. I don't know what it says. That thing is in my way. Move. Express the given equation in slope-intercept form. So that's what we're going to do first. So remember what slope-intercept form is. Y equals mx plus b. Oh my goodness. Why does that happen? Let me go back. Did I skip something? Okay. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. All right, here's a y. I want it by itself. I'm going to move this whole positive term. How do I get rid of a positive term? I subtract it. So 3x minus 3x is gone. So I bring down 2y is equal to, these are unlike terms. I can't combine my 3 and 10. I want this to be written first because this is the form I'm used to. So I'm going to bring to the front negative 3x, and that is a positive 10. Now this says 2 times y. I want to get y by itself. So I'm going to divide every single term by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is gone. Y is equal to, I'm going to write this as a fraction, negative 3 over 2x. Negative 3 over 2x plus 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I've taken that standard form right here, equation that's in standard form, and I've rewritten it in slope-intercept form. So now I'm going to do step 2, find the equation of a line which passes through the point 7, -1 and is parallel to this line. Well, what do I know about parallel lines? I know that parallel lines have the same slope. So my new line must have a slope of -3/2. That's the slope. Two parallel lines have the same slope. And then it tells me my new line must go through the point 7, -1. So I'm given a point and I'm given a slope. So which formula do you think I need? I need a point slope formula. And we used that earlier. The point slope formula is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. All right, and so this is the only point I have, so that has to be x1 and y1. So y minus, what is y1? -1. Y minus -1 is equal to our slope of -3/2 times x minus x1, 7. All right, so this is going to be bam, bam. So I'm going to write y plus 1 is equal to, now I'm going to use the distributive property. -3/2 times x is -3/2 x. And then negative times a negative is a positive. So I'm going to write plus 3 times 7 is 21/2, right? And now I'm going to get x by, I want y by itself. So we're going to subtract 1. We can't subtract 1 from this because it's connected to an x. So I'm going to subtract 1 from this, right? So y is equal to -3/2 x. So first of all, 21 divided by 2 is 11.5. So I know 11.5 minus 1 is positive 10.5. Or I could write that as a fraction, which would be whatever. 16/5. 16/5. Right? No, 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 no. No, it would be 19/5. No. Crap. 19/2. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop right now. Stop right now. But anyway, we know that 11.5 minus 1 is 10.5. Okay. It's late here. I better stop trying to think. Okay. So anyway, the point was we found out our first equation in slope-intercept form. We knew that with parallel lines, we have to have the same slope. Then we use our slope intercept formula, and we came up with our new equation for a line that's parallel to our first one and goes through this particular coordinate. All right, let's try another one. How about you guys pause this, and it's almost exactly the same that we just did, finding a parallel line a line that's parallel to this one. So we're going to put this bad boy in slope-intercept form, and then we're going to use the slope, and we're going to write another equation for a line that has the same slope as this one and goes through this point, blah, blah, blah. All right, so you guys try it and then come back to the video and see how you did. So we're going to use that distributive property first thing. So we're going to write 2y minus 7 is equal to -3 times 2 is -6. A negative times a negative is positive 6x. All right, and we're writing in slope-intercept form, which means we want to solve for y. So we want to get rid of all this other stuff. So we're going to get rid of -7 by adding 7. So we can only add 7 to this whole number. It's actually called a constant because it's not attached to a variable. So this one's gone. We bring down 2y is equal to -6 plus 7 is positive 1 plus 6x. And now we want to divide every term by 2. So that's gone. So y equals 1/2 plus 6 divided by 2 is 3x. So if I want my 3x first, I'm just going to rewrite it. So my slope is 3 and my y-intercept is 1/2. But really all I care about is the slope for the second number or the second equation. I want a line that's parallel to this line that goes through the point 5, -2 and has a slope of 3, right? So I have a slope and a point. So I'm going to say this is x1 and this is y1. And I'm going to use the formula y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. I'm going to plug in y minus -2 is equal to 3 times x minus 5. And then this will be y plus 2 is equal to 3x minus 15. And then when I subtract 2 from both sides, I get the same slope, 3x minus 17. -15 minus 2 is -17. All right, so how did you guys do? Did you get 3x minus 17? I hope you did. All right, let's do this. Oh, so now we're talking about perpendicular lines. So what are two perpendicular lines? So here's our graph. So if I have two perpendicular lines, that means I have two lines that when they meet, not only do they intersect, but when they intersect, it forms 4 right angles. So perpendicular lines are intersecting lines that form 90-degree angles, 90 degrees. So what does that mean? So obviously this would be a positive slope. This would have a positive slope. This has a negative slope, and the slopes are an inverse of one another. So let's pretend for a second that the slope of this line is, I don't know, 3/2. Well, the slope of this line is going to be the opposite and inverse. It's going to be the opposite sign, and we're going to flip those numbers. The inverse of 3/2 is 2/3. Okay, what is the inverse of +5? 5/1. It's the same thing, right? The opposite and the inverse of 5/1 is -1/5. What is the opposite inverse of 4/5? The opposite inverse is -5/4. What's the opposite inverse of -3? Well, -3 is the same thing as -3/1. So the opposite inverse would be +1/3. Okay, so let's make a note in our notes. Let's say that perpendicular lines, have slopes that are opposite and inverse. Opposite and inverse. Opposite and inverse. Opposite signs, and you flip it. All right, so let's follow these directions. We're going to write this in slope-intercept form. So we got to get our y's on the left side. So that means we're going to subtract 5y from both sides. We got to get our y's together. So we're going to bring down 2x plus 6y minus 5y is 1y. And 1 times y is just y, is equal to -4. I want y by itself, so I'm going to get rid of this whole positive term. The only way to do that is to subtract 2x from both sides. So y is equal to -2x minus 4. That is that line, that equation written in slope-intercept form. So our perpendicular line is the opposite and the inverse of -2/1. What's the opposite and inverse? It would be +1/2. So our slope is going to be positive 1 over 2, and our point is negative 12, negative 2. So we are going to use the slope point slope formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is going to be x1 and y1. So y minus y2, excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying y2, y1 equals m times x. Oh, we know our slope. Just kidding. Not m when you know it. M is 1/2 times x minus negative 12. All right, we got two bam bams, right? Bam, 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 bam. Y plus 2 is equal to half of x, 1/2 x, and then half of positive 12, because we're multiplying 12 times 1/2 plus 6. And finally, we want y by itself, so we subtract 2 from both sides. So y is equal to 1/2 x plus 4. This is our equation that has a slope of positive 1/2 and goes through the point negative 12, negative 2. All right, you guys try example 4. Oh, wait, let's see. Express the first equation in slope-intercept form, express the second equation in slope-intercept form, and then determine if the two lines are perpendicular. You guys can do that. All right, so pause the video, try it out, see what you get. All right, so if we want this in slope-intercept form, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. We're going to bring down 2y, negative 2y is equal to negative 3x plus 5. And then we divide every single term by negative 2. So a negative divided by negative is positive 3/2 x. And then a positive divided by negative is minus 5 over 2. And now we're going to work on the second one. We got to multiply everything in there by negative 2. So we're going to do 2x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4 is equal to 3y minus 2x. We're going to combine like terms. So these basically cancel each other. 2x minus 2x is 0. So we bring down our negative 4 is equal to 3y minus 2x. We want y by itself. So we're going to add 2x to both sides. So we have 2x minus 4, those are unlike terms, I can't combine them, is equal to 3y, this is gone, right? We want y by itself, so we're going to divide every single term by 3. So that's gone. So y is equal to, this is going to be left in fraction form, 2 over 3x minus 4/3. And if you want to write the y first, feel free to do that. So this is this equation. The question is, are these two lines perpendicular? Yes or no? What do you think? The answer is no, they're not. Why? They are inverses of each other. 3 over 2, the inverse of 3 over 2 is 2 over 3, but they're not opposite signs. They have to be opposite and inverse. So the answer is no, they're not equivalent. Or excuse me, they're not perpendicular. All right, is that the last one? Nope, almost. All right. All right, you guys try this one. And this time we're trying to see, are these parallel? All right, come back and check your answer. So I'm gonna start with the easy one on here on this side. So I'm gonna subtract 1 from both sides first. So I have 3y is equal to 6 plus 10x. And then I'm going to divide every single term by 3. So I have y equals 2 plus 10/3 x, or if we want to have our x first, there's that one. Now this time, remember parallel, that means the slopes are the same. Slopes are equal. So if y'all already done it, let's see what you got. 7 minus 3y, and then minus, don't forget we're multiplying everything by an invisible -1. -1 times 4x is minus 4x equals 6 times x is 6x, and 6 times -y is minus 6y. Now we're going to get our x's and y's together. So why don't we pull our y on this side? So we have 7 plus 3y, because -3y plus 6y is positive 3y, minus 4x is equal to 6x. And now we're going to get rid of this 4 by adding 4x to both sides. So we're going to do 7 plus 3y equals 10x. Then we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So we have 3y equals 10x minus 7. And finally, we divide every single term by 3. And we get y is equal to 10/3 x minus 4/3. So here's our two equations. Are they parallel? The answer is yes. The slopes are exactly the same. There should be an arrow. Yes, yes, yes. Hopefully you got it right. All right, so make sure you read your section called Do I Need a Math Tutor? Here are some great questions we need to discuss. What are some ways that learning styles can be different? What kind of tutoring services or other academic help does Lanier Tech offer? We definitely have awesome math tutors. What do you look for in a tutor? Can a tutor be useful? Almost always. How should you prepare for a tutoring session? Those are great questions. So we have two new sections, 3.3 and 3.4. So try to have both of these, and actually all three of them, because you have this study skills section 0.6. So try to have all that homework done by Monday. I will be live on Hawks on Collaborate at 6 o'clock. I will be there until 7:15 to answer your questions. Come on by. I will assume if I have any announcements or anything to make, I'll have a little discussion, I guess, about 6:45, 6:50, but I will be there live from 6 to 7:15 to answer your questions, clarify anything, help you with homework, whatever you need from me. All right, you guys have a great night, and I will see you on Wednesday or Thursday, whichever class you're in.